forever.
Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom.
No forced redundancies.
Get out there,
Welcome to Unpacked, the podcast where we share a sandwich with a special guest. I'm Queensland Labor leader Stevenmiles, and this is
Corinne Holland.
And our guest today is a member of my team, another member of my team, Meaghan Scanlon. She was a great minister.
She was.
And she's the only Labor person on the Gold Coast, big part of Queensland, with only one Labor person. We'd love to see more there, and we might talk to her about how we might be able to go about that.
Elected to Parliament at 24.
Yeah, real young, talented.
Amazing woman.
She is. Shall we bring her in?
I think so.
Okay.
Come on in.
Come in, Meaghan.
Hello.
Take a seat.
Thank you.
Grab your Unpacked microphone. Yeah,
Fancy,
welcome
hey?
to our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think?
Well, your office is looking really lovely now. I was
is.
Just saying.
They tidied it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the plant.
It's a good place to house all these caps. So there's a lot of caps.
A lot of caps.
I did some rearranging. I put the Dolphins one over here and I moved the Cowboys one and the Titans. Sorry, the Titans
I
over
like
there.
the Titans one.
Apologies. My apologies.
Oh, but they found a Suns one for you, Meaghan.
Yeah. They're actually doing really well at the moment.
Excellent. Well, the idea of this podcast was that you were meant to bring a sandwich, but it's not here yet.
No.
Keeping us guessing, building a bit of anticipation. We love it.
Yeah, it'll take a while because I can't cook. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, actually,
it'll make sense.
it looks like it is here.
Watch this space.
KFC. How very GC of you, Meaghan.
It's also very Nerang.
Very Nerang?
We've got like a whole junk food alley in my electorate. And
Nice.
so there's so many options, but KFC is my favourite.
It smells amazing, I must say.
All right. Well, you better unpack it. Tell us what you brought.
So we have...
I might hold. Do you want me to hold that?
Okay, thank you. We have... I quite like an original filler burger meal, but I also like a zinger burger meal. So
Yep.
we've got
Options.
extra chips, I think, here to share. Zinger burger. I don't eat this every
Chips.
day, which is probably good, but more than I should.
Excellent.
Would you
All
like
right.
some chips?
I would love a chip. I'd never say no to a chip.
Unpacked, and Corinne can snack on the chips, and we'll get into the bread and butter. So this is our first segment where we get to know you a little bit better, Meaghan Scanlon. You're our only Labor MP on the Gold Coast. What's that like for now? Yep.
Bit lonely.
It is a bit. I grew up on the Gold Coast, and so I really love it. But it is. There's 11 seats on the Gold Coast. We've only got one Labor one just right in the middle, and I've held that. I think this is the third term, but it's. There's a lot of people on the Gold Coast that benefit from Labor governments and the stuff that we've done, and so. I hope over time we can demonstrate to them that it's Labor governments that care and we can win more of those seats back.
Yeah. When you were growing up in the Gold Coast, we would have had more Labor
During
MPs.
the Beattie era.
Yeah.
Burley.
I think it was a
and-
six-pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Southport.
Peter Lawler.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about Peter when we had Ailey
Ailey,
France on.
yeah.
Yes.
And he ran like a million times before.
He did 4 times.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Ailey's done
Something in
one
that
better
family.
than him. That's right.
There's some sort of resilience in that family. Clearly.
Incredible. Yeah, she told us it was like pushing through mud.
Yes.
Was that what she said?
Yes.
Pushing
Trekking through mud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it must feel a little bit like that on the Gold Coast too. You know, everything was thrown at you at the last campaign, and it was a really, really tough campaign. They sort of came after you personally.
Yeah. It was a tough campaign, and we I think there was one day on the pre-poll where we had nearly every single Gold Coast LNP politician on the polling booth, weren't in their own communities, but were there to try and get
Yes.
rid of me and the one Labor seat that we had on the coast, which I just think is a demonstration of the fact that they don't like having any sort of accountability on the Gold Coast. And I think regardless of your views on politics, it's actually good to have a bit of diversity in a community because people just take it for granted, and a lot of them sit on fat margins and don't do anything.
So many Gold Coast people I deal with talk about how they're mostly LNP supporters, but they'd prefer to have a bit more balance down there.
Yeah. Well, when you look at all of the infrastructure, it's been Labor governments that have done it, and so often the LNP rail against it, like the light rail.
That's right.
Case
Yes.
in point. So yeah.
The light rail, heavy rail, the university hospital,
Yep.
all the big stuff.
Yep. Your train stations. It's the Commonwealth Games, like all of those incredible venues. Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about growing up on the Gold Coast. Tell us about your family and your mum and your beautiful brother.
Yeah. So I grew up in Nerang, which is in my electorate. My brother Callum is probably my biggest supporter. He's great on the
He's a star.
He's so he's got Down syndrome. So like part of his story and experience, I suppose, is what influenced me in getting into politics. His experience in the education system and getting a job and just being independent was obviously really different to my experience. And this was, he went through schooling pre-NDIS. And so I've seen things change over time, largely as a result of Labor governments, but it's not always been easy for him. And I think it really demonstrates to me why having good governments matters to people with a disability. My mum worked in the public service for many, many years. She worked at Centrelink in Southport for a number of years. She was a workplace delegate with the CPSU, so I went to my first union meeting at 6 months old. And my dad was a police officer for a number of years on the Gold Coast, a detective. He ended up retiring and going and working for what was then Virgin Blue, which is now just Virgin Australia, when it first started up. But he died of melanoma, and so that's also influenced my views, I suppose, about politics and things
How old
like
were you then?
13. Yeah. So, and so that's kind of, I think, and we all kind of have stories, don't we, on voluntary assisted dying and what motivated, why we had strong views about that particular reform. But again, yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I think is important, that people have control over the way in which they end their suffering, and that we have a good quality healthcare system for everyone who's going through cancer or any sort of illness.
And your life would have obviously been turned on its head when your father passed away and you were 13. Your mum was raising you. She was working as well at the same time. Your brother. What was that like, imprinted on you sort of in the 90s, and the kind of social systems that were either there or weren't there to support your family?
Look, I feel really lucky to have my mum's got 6 brothers and sisters, and my dad had a number of brothers and sisters as well. So we were very much supported by our extended family, but not everyone has that support. And I do think that was further complicated not complicated, but it was slightly more challenging for mum having to raise Callum in particular by herself for a large part of our lives. And I think it just gives you a bit of perspective on what it's like for some families who are there's a lot of people out there who are raising kids as a single parent, and they do an amazing job. I hats off to anyone who's raising kids as a single parent, because it's a bloody hard job. And
I was raised by a single mum, and I just can't imagine, now having a baby, how...
Congratulations.
Thank you, how tough that was. It's just, it's unrelenting. There's no, and I grew up as in a single parent family in the 90s when there really wasn't a child support system in place, and there wasn't the same access to support for mums, particularly financially, and all of that has changed over time after the Hawke and Keating governments. But it was a really tough time growing up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people like us in politics who've gone, through those tougher circumstances, and it's, I know for me it was a bit of a fire in the belly to get into politics. How about you?
Yeah, definitely. I think all of our personal experiences influence the way you think about the world and how you want to change it to help other people who might have been in those situations. Like my parents were they both grew up in pretty working class communities, so that even though I didn't live necessarily. So my dad grew up in Inala for most of his life. Mum grew up in a little town called Moe in the sort of Latrobe Valley, Victorian region, which is like a coal mining community that sort of has transitioned over time. But they both grew up in social housing, and Mum used to tell me about those nights where it got incredibly cold and just didn't have enough money to put on the heater, and so she used to have to put her blanket and dressing gown and all of the things they had to keep warm. And I think that then influences the way you think about things when you're growing up. I feel very lucky because that wasn't my experience. Mum, thankfully, as a result of going to university for free under the Whitlam era, was able to get a good job and provide for us. But I think all of it influences the way you think about things, and hopefully you get into politics to try and make it better for the next generation, like, what my mum was able to do for us.
And what did you do between school and getting elected? You worked in childcare for a bit, you studied law.
Yeah. I worked at outside school hours care, where I went as a child.
Oh, nice.
So that was nice. I studied law at Griffith University. I did my postgrad at QUT, which would have appreciated 50-cent fares then.
Yeah,
It was really expensive.
That's a long commute.
Yeah. Then I got a job up in Brizzy, so I was commuting at a law firm that did mostly employment law. I briefly worked in a senator's office before I got involved in politics, and before I did that, I actually ran for the seat of Fadden against Stuart Robert unsuccessfully, and that was kind of my
Jeez,
first.
that's a name I haven't heard for a while.
isn't
for a
it?
good reason.
Yeah. This is a blast from the past.
Yeah.
Mr. Robodet.
Yeah. The Rolex debacle. So many
Yeah.
things.
What a guy.
And then 2017 you were elected?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't come in at the big
No,
2015
the big
wave that you all did.
But we welcomed you in 2017.
I still remember, I was saying to Stephen before, I still remember the campaign launch where you gave the opening address and you introduced the Premier at the time, and on the Gold Coast, and it was seen as being, what are they doing launching the campaign down on the Gold Coast? What are they, the Labor Party's not going to get a seat on the Gold Coast. What are they doing? Here is this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, smart young woman introducing the Premier, and I still vividly remember your introduction to the Premier that day. It was pretty inspiring.
Yeah, I thought about that the other day because I ran thinking, we probably wouldn't win, we worked really hard and obviously wanted to win, but knew it was going to be difficult. And I remember the Premier at the time saying, generally the people who do these speeches win their seat, so no pressure, but I suspect she knew what some of the polling was looking like at that point. I did not. So no, it was, that was a really important election too, because you had come from minority government, hadn't you? And we were able to get a majority government. Yeah.
And were you in the Premier's office at that time?
I was. So I was literally standing on the sidelines watching you, really impressed by how you conducted yourself and just seeing, a young woman there, front and centre, in a tough part of the world for the Labor Party and, flying the flag. So it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was a really positive campaign too. I distinctly remember that video of the Anastasia with all of the manufacturing train workers saying we would.
The picture on the wall,
Yeah, there you are. Yeah. That was a really, really cool moment. Even though, on the Gold Coast, it's probably not seen as important. I think people do really care about manufacturing and creating good jobs in Queensland.
It's amazing to think that your trains are being decked out in Queensland and not overseas. Yep.
Then you served as our Environment Minister, a job that I've had.
It was your favourite job.
And another former Environment Minister said to me once, it's a job that changes you.
Yeah.
What was the highlight of that term?
It's actually one of the greatest portfolios because you just get to see and meet so many incredible people who are really, really smart and passionate. I really enjoyed the engagement and work we did with sort of First Nations communities, and some of those land handbacks were really, really important. But the work we were doing on climate change to help develop some of those targets, the Lake Basin reforms, which I know you had been working on for a long time as well. There's so many amazing parts, and there's just people who dedicate so much of their own personal time to try and protect the environment. So
were you scuba diving a lot like other environment ministers?
Once scuba dive in the role. I've scuba dived, but not officially in the role.
You wasted it.
Yeah.
I think that's why I met Stephen was like in his
We were scuba diving.
Yeah, it was your scuba Steve era.
That's right, I forgot that.
I actually described it as we all had to try and get him into this very, very small wetsuit
Yep.
that was undercated for.
I spent a lot of time on farms talking
farms,
because
yeah.
about runoff.
You do a lot of farms.
Yeah. Which is also great, but like it's not quite scuba diving, is it?
No. Probably met a lot of wildlife as well.
Critters.
A lot of critters.
Yeah.
Amazing rangers, park rangers
are
up in First Nations rangers.
In
as well.
fact, this picture here is one of my first days as Environment Minister. That's us releasing a hand-reared platypus. Who gets to hold and release a hand-reared platypus?
I said to
Special day.
Stephen, I can't get over how
your
small.
kids,
Yeah,
yeah.
how small Stephen Sam and Aiden are. They're just tiny.
Yeah, they are. They're
Had a
grown
full
up
head of hair.
now. Yeah.
It was your pre-lifting era too.
It's true.
Before the scuba era and definitely before the lifting era.
Yeah. And then the all-important housing portfolio.
Yeah.
You and I have been in those parks where people are sleeping rough, and it's pretty confronting, yeah?
Yeah. It's. I think it demonstrates the very real problem that we have as a society, that people are sleeping in tents because they have no other option. And I know you did a lot of work, Stephen, as the planning minister, like trying to reform that system so that we have genuinely well-located and affordable homes for frontline workers, because that is, that's why people are being pushed onto the streets, because they don't have access to those houses. And why I've been really frustrated at the new LNP government for just axing projects that would actually make a meaningful difference for those people who are sleeping rough right now.
That's right. I think you and I have both read the same book recently, Ezra Klein's Abundance, but the way it talks about how, like, the role of supply, people complicate homelessness, and you're right, it's about mental illness and drug and alcohol abuse and everything else, but those things decide who is homeless. Yeah. The number of houses decide how many people are homeless, and that statement really struck me, because if we can't get more supply, and so you've got a lot of people at the moment pointing to those social problems as justification for just pulling the tents down and kicking the people out. Yeah. But if you don't have the social supports there to get them back into productive housing, it's not going to work.
And I think if you talk to, there's so many amazing frontline workers too who go out every day to try and provide support to people who are sleeping rough. They'll tell you that there's kind of always been a cohort of people who have slept rough for a variety of reasons, and we as society need to do a better job to help those individuals. But there is this growing cohort of families and just workers who can't afford to live. Yeah. When you axe affordable housing projects, that does not help any of those people. And we have to have a sensible conversation as a community about the fact that we need houses in well-located areas. It still means we can have all of the amazing things. In fact, it probably means we can have more nice things like cafes and, other great assets, because you've got a bigger economy of scale. But it's going to require change, and people need to, we all need to think about other people, I suppose, in some of those changes that need to come through.
Yeah, so breaking that issue down a bit further, when you were the housing minister, you also brought to that job the perspective of renting, and that's probably a perspective that we hadn't seen in that role for a long time.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
I think, I don't profess to be in, the position I was in was really different to a lot of people, and I totally acknowledge that. I do think, though, the fact that, I was slightly younger coming into politics meant that, kind of by default I was a renter. And so I think that's why it's important to have, lots of different people in the parliament that represent different parts of our community. We did a range of different things, like we tried to bring in changes to ban all types of rent bidding, because that was just jacking the price up for renters. Limiting the amount of times rent can increase, providing more rental subsidies just to fill in that gap to help people, and also just getting more Rent Connect offices and housing service centres so we could really provide people with help where where some of those other systems weren't working for people. So I feel pretty proud of some of the stuff we did. I kind of hope the government continues with some of it. I don't have huge confidence that they're going to bring in like the rental sector code of conduct. That's really important to sort of stamp out some of the dodgy and unprofessional practices that have sometimes happened in that rental sector. But we'll see. You know, I think we've got a number of people on our side who are still renters or who have been renters and who care a lot about making sure that what is 30% of our population is properly represented in the parliament. And so we'll keep pushing to make sure they do the right thing.
And then in October, we lost the election, and I was putting together the shadow cabinet then, and I asked you to take on a really big job, which Shadow Attorney General. You know, there's lots of legislation and work and everything else, and you said you'd only do it if you got to stay the housing spokesperson too, and I said you were mad, but you're now doing both of those jobs, doing a good job. But why couldn't you give up the housing portfolio?
I really care about it, and I think it's, you know, in these jobs you don't always get a huge amount of time to see the sort of reform and progress that you want to. And I feel like I was in that housing role still for, you know, I think it was just over a year, which is, you know, great. And we achieved a huge amount, probably the most that any single term of government has achieved in their housing space because of, you know, your leadership and, you know, the support of our caucus. But I really wanted to make sure that the measures that we put into that long-term plan continued and that this government was held to account, and that and I think there is still a connection between, you know, justice and housing. Like so many of the problems we have as a community are a result of the fact that people just can't afford basic housing, and so that if you can get that right, then the other stuff is a bit better.
Well, that moves us on to the next segment that we call Cut the Crust, which is where we get your opinion on some wider issues. But let's stick with housing for a bit, because I really want to get your sense of, you know, if we had a magic wand, what would you do that would make housing more affordable?
There's so many things. Probably make sure that our planning system was genuinely unlocking affordable homes in well-located areas. That is a lot more complicated than it sounds, and you know that. But that's the thing that's going to make the biggest impact long-term, and also save the budget money and Queensland taxpayers' money, because you're not having to spend as much money on roads connecting people and sort of
sites.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not an easy task.
No, it's not. And a lot of the challenges are kind of, they've built up over time, really pent up over time. If you had a time machine, when would you go back to, and what would you change?
Oh, I don't know if I could give you a specific year, but I would go back to when government stopped investing in this and the scale of public and community housing, and you know, do what we did, which was like model out what is needed and ensure that you invest every single year to keep that public housing stock continuing, because, you know, I feel like governments kind of stop doing it when things are going well. And as you know, like, it takes time to build houses. So when you do that it has a flow-on consequence down the track.
In that time machine, let's assume there's a radio.
You got a magic wand and a time machine.
But you're in the time machine. Let's assume there's a radio. And what are we listening to on the radio as we're travelling back to this time? What are we listening to, you know, music-wise?
As in,
This is a segue to a popular culture question.
right? Yes. Okay. So are we listening to a song from that era, or are we listening to a song?
Choose. You be the judge. It's magic. There's a magic wand and a time machine. There are no rules here.
Oh, I don't know. Like maybe not Taylor Swift. I feel like Taylor Swift's always a good time.
Oh, I love Taylor Swift.
Like anything, probably one of her earlier albums, I would say. I don't know.
Bit of 1989 blaring through. Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you like a bit of Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift is forced upon me. I have an 11-year-old daughter.
because they're coming to Australia, and it makes me think of my time in high school, a bit of Oasis, I reckon. So, Don't Look Back in Anger, a bit of Wonderwall, you know, a bit of that gear, I wouldn't
People
mind.
said they wouldn't stick together, but
Brothers fight, but they always come back together. That's what family's for.
it's quite a fight.
It was quite a fight. Very spicy fight, but family always sticks together.
Well, while we're on favourites, what's your favourite restaurant or cafe on the Gold Coast?
Oh, this is hard because I love
Other than the
The spinning bucket.
KFC,
anywhere
FLG.
from Junk Food Alley. I don't know. I really Pagliacci's in my electorate is really good. It's like an Italian restaurant.
Okay.
But yeah, I really like takeaway, which is really bad, but rely on it too much. But you have to in these jobs.
Yeah, eating too many burgers as well.
But there's so many options on the Gold Coast, so we're kind of spoiled for choice.
Wow.
All right, well, let's go back to a serious topic then. This week, the week we're recording this, you tried to change the law around good character in rape cases. Mm-hmm. Just explain that for us in like 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah, so we tried to change the law to say that if you're a perpetrator of rape or sexual assault, that you shouldn't be able to rely on a good character reference saying you're a good bloke from your family or friends, or some sort of allegation that you're, some upstanding citizen, to try and reduce your sentence. Like if you committed the crime.
Does this happen?
Absolutely, and that's when we were in government, we referred this to a whole lot of experts who came back and said that of a lot of the cases that they looked at, about a quarter of them gave a lot of weight to these references in how they sentenced that perpetrator. And
I think people would be shocked to hear that.
I think they would, and 90% of the cases still considered that reference. But as I said, a quarter heavily weighted it. So clearly something needs to change. That's why we introduced those reforms, as well as saying that if you're the perpetrator of sexual abuse against a child, then you should, that should be an aggravating offence. We should, make sure that you're held to account more seriously because you've taken advantage of someone who is incredibly vulnerable. And also some changes just to improve a victim's experience in the court and make sure that the harm done to them is genuinely recognised in sentencing. We tried twice to basically make that law this week, and the government just blocked it.
Terrible.
Yeah. So they declared the Trusts bill urgent.
You got to tell people what the trust bill is.
Oh,
Not everyone followed it as closely as we obviously did. But
very interesting stuff.
How long has the trust bill been under consideration?
A long, long time. And so the government had said it was
and it's
urgent.
for people using family trusts to avoid tax, basically.
Yeah. So that was declared urgent by the government, and this change, which has been recommended by experts who considered this over 19 months, was not deemed urgent by this government, and they wouldn't even vote on their own laws this week. It's pretty outrageous.
We see some pretty crazy things in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, our last segment we're calling They Said What? And we're going to read out a couple of quotes and ask you to guess who you think they were and tell us what you think about it. Do you want to do the first one, Corinne?
Yes, I think you might get this one. The quote is, it's a core tenet of the Liberal Party, if you don't pay for something, you don't value it.
I remember seeing this. Was it? It wasn't Susan Ley, was it?
It was.
Yeah. What was she talking about? Was she talking about Medicare?
She was talking
She
about
could have
TAFE.
been, but
Oh,
no,
TAFE.
free TAFE.
Free
Yeah,
TAFE.
okay.
Arguing against free TAFE.
Arguing against free TAFE. The
Why is
new-
free TAFE good?
Oh, it's really good for working people who can't afford to go and get training at the expense of their parents usually.
Yes.
and paying up front as well.
And if you're renting and you have costs, you just have general life that you've got to pay for. Why would you go and
And we need more tradies.
Yeah. And aged care workers and all of those really
Yeah.
important
Care
other
workers.
allied health industries.
Yeah, just recently I was over at South Bank TAFE
Yep.
talking to students there, and they love free TAFE, but it meant that they were directed into the courses that we need people the most too. So it's a really important public policy lever.
Definitely. And I mean, we saw what the Liberals did here is try and sell off TAFE campuses and privatise it last time. So it's a trend, no matter what level of government there is.
Yeah, and we're hearing reports now that they've already pulled back on free TAFEs, that people are finding it hard to enrol.
Yeah.
Disappointing. The next one's a beauty. I'm not sure you'll guess this, but having heard you speak, I think it's an entirely appropriate quote. It says, "All you have to do in life is be passionate and enthusiastic, and you will have a wonderful life." Who said that?
I don't know.
In the wildlife space.
Son is a Bonds model.
Oh, Robert Irwin.
Steve Owen.
Steve Irwin.
Oh, Steve. Was it? Okay, all right.
You had Robert on your mind.
Yeah.
You and the rest of the country. You and the rest of the
They're
country.
actually a really lovely family.
They
though.
are.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things about being Queensland Environment Minister is you
Yeah.
get to hang out with the Owens.
Yeah. And we were able to give them more money to do really important rehabilitation work for animals.
And their conservation work on the Cape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well that brings us.
You're welcome onto the podcast.
Yes.
But it is a little cold in here, so you might have to wear some clothes. We're wearing jackets, as you can see.
Like, in fact, we'd take any of the Owens.
Yes, we would.
So
we would.
there's a call out, and if you're up at the Australia Zoo, maybe you can drop a comment in the comment box that they should come on the Unpacked podcast.
Build some momentum.
That's right. Well, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode of Unpacked. It's been great to have you with us, Meaghan Scanlon.
Thanks for having me.
You've been great. How good KFC?
It's pretty good. I find it hard to believe Meaghan has as much KFC as she implied she did.
I
but
know. I wish I looked like her and ate KFC all the time. It'd be a good problem to have.
Great story, though.
Incredible story. And she did some incredible work as the housing minister and amazing to want to keep the fight going as a shadow as well.
I couldn't talk her out of it. I tried.
Perseverance, it's amazing.
It really is. Well, thanks for joining me again,
Thank
Corinne,
you.
on Unpacked. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Not now, not ever.
Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom.
No forced redundancies.
Get out with it.